Shams came out of the shadows, there was a conversation, Rumi fell off the horse, Rumi and Shams went off into quietness, solitude for 40 days. Rumi emerged completely different, and madness began. The disciples hated this transformation. They wanted their nice little sweet tidy little master. They didn't want this being aflame with friendship, aflame with sacred passion, aflame with knowledge of his divinity, and they hated Shams. All of this is being sweetened over in the traditions, but the reality, if you look at the text, is that they could not stand Shams, because Shams wouldn't let anybody get away with playing small, and so he insulted everybody, including Rumi, again and again,
and himself.
And himself.
Yeah. He said, what I say, all these things I'm saying are about half hypocrisy. Don't you wish some mystic nowadays would say that?
I said that you talks, I hope that I won't have to have. Yes, of course,
Yeah,
I do. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Because everybody has to realize the complete lack of power of words.
Yeah.
And Rumi again and again, the greatest poet in the world, constantly says, all of this is nothing compared to what I know and what I see.
Right.
Why has Shams taken over your heart and mind and work now? Because Coleman's just done this book, and he read me some on the phone, and this is called Soul Fury. What an incredible way of describing a human being. Somebody who had soul fury. And that is the best two words to describe Shams that we could have. Why did you want to devote yourself to this at this moment? This is such an important thing.
It sort of devoted itself to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, I don't know. But I just sort of look at those bits and pieces of a couple of scholars, you know, Shiddick and Lewis. And then I'm just sort of piecing them together, you know, and making 72 sayings of Shams, you know. So it remains interesting to me. I love the way, a lot of it is just conversation with Rumi. And he says things to Rumi, you know, in there. Like Rumi is of course leading an ecstatic life. We should talk about that a little bit, what that is.
Absolutely.
What is the ecstatic life? But Shams complicates that a good bit by making it, he says, well, let me see if I can finish. Well, Rumi gets lost in the ecstasy of his kindness.
Yeah.
But he loses clarity within that. He surrenders to that state and forgets everything, whereas I retain control of my awareness. I feel the same loving awareness, the same ecstasy, but I don't get lost in the love ecstasy as he does. So, what is it? He says he doesn't just wander around in love with existence, as Rumi does. And there are stages of the beloved that you can get lost in.
Oh yeah.
You know, I have in the past, you know, I just see the beloved everywhere. And it's true, but there's some kind of fierce clarity and ornery truthfulness that that is not contained in that ecstatic vision, you know. And don't you love people who are that, who embody that?
I do, but
Yeah.
I think that the ecstatic is an essential stage of waking up to the beloved. You need to have that honeymoon passion, that rapture, but it's nowhere near the end of the relationship, because after that comes so much really turning up to be responsible for that ecstasy in life, and then the great revelations that showed the eternal light as the reality of realities, and all of this as passing, all of this as fundamentally illusory. And when that light comes up, it's like a knife. It parts you from everything in the depths of yourself and breeds a very, very deep, noble detachment from which you speak and act in fundamentally extremely radical and sober ways, because you see the truth of things with unflinching rigor. And that's where Shams is.
Yes.
But the beauty of the relationship, though, isn't it, is that you have these two incredible beings. Shams in his young 60s meeting Rumi. Rumi's lack was that he longed to be loved. He was charming, beautiful, aristocratic, passionate, and he knew how to seduce at the highest levels people, and he had immense charisma. And he would have been trapped in that desire to love and to be loved had he not loved somebody who was unspeakably fierce and who would expose his narcissism, his subtle enjoyment of this game that danced around him. But equally, I think, Shams needed Rumi deeply. And there are passages in the Maqamat in which Shams just says, my God, he is so amazing, he's so beautiful, he is so extraordinarily rich and deep. So Rumi completed something in Shams's harsh, jagged, mountainous, ferocious, terrifying nature. And Rumi gave, and Shams gave him that sweetness.
Yeah.
That sobriety, I mean.
Rumi is the drunk.
And Rumi, I think they're both drunk and sober.
Yeah.
But Rumi was tempted more by drunkenness.
Right.
And Shams was tempted more by sobriety.
Uh-huh.
And for the fusion, the delicate and beautiful and holy marriage to take place between drunkenness and sobriety, they needed each other to complete each other.
What is the opposite of charisma? Rumi had charisma.
I think the opposite of charisma is radical authenticity, which can be extremely disturbing.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
Well, charisma attracts crowds.
Right.
And somehow the opposite of charisma is ferocity.
Right.
So dispels crowds. And
Well, Shams could empty a room like nobody could.
Yes. He was radically unconventional and impolite.
Yes.
Shall we show you? No.
Read some of these wonderful.
Impolite things.
Read some of Shams to us. It's so amazing to read. Please.
I see. Was it real impolite ones? Forgive me, her.
Shams was famous for insulting sheikhs, which is his favorite thing. He once went to, you remember the Kamani story? Such a great story. Sheikh Kamani was a very refined, aesthetic, gloriously intelligent, had written 42 books, had been on Oprah several times. And Shams came into his group. Kamani also believed that by worshipping the beauty of young men, you could get to God. And Shams was having none of this. And so he dragged the sheikh. Dragging the sheikh is not what you do in Sufi circles. Out of the house and made him look into a mud puddle and said, You could see the reflection of the sun in this disgusting, dirty little mud puddle, can't you? And the sheikh went, I said, yes, it's a good thing to say yes. And then he said to the sheikh, well, why do you stare at the reflection of the sun in a dirty puddle when you could stare at the sun directly? And he was thrown out. But he did this all over Asia Minor. He was thrown out of every single group that he ever tried to join, which is an astonishing achievement.
You've been a member of several churches, haven't you? So in Baghdad, this is Sham's story, in Baghdad there's a great master who is on a 40-day retreat. Have you ever done that? I know.
40 days? Yeah. 40 days.
All right.
I went stir crazy by the end.
Yeah. Were you silent?
I'll tell you later.
On the night before New Year's Eve, that is in Nowruz, middle of March, he hears an inner voice, we have given you the breath of Jesus. Come out and let the people see. He wonders what this means, the great sheikh did. Some kind of a test. The voice comes again, stronger. Leave your hesitation behind. Come out. Go to many kinds of gatherings. We have given you the breath of Jesus. Breathe it among the people. Still, he wants to consider this longer in the clarity of his seclusion. A third time. This time, the voice is shouting, come out! He breaks his retreat. It is the day of the festival. He's walking among the crowds. A candy seller has made little birds of sugar candy, calling New Year's candy, New Year's candy. He says to himself, I'll see about this breath of Jesus, and calls to the candy man. People wonder what the meditation master is doing. He has no interest in candy. He takes a bird shape from the tray and puts it on his palm. He blows on it. Immediately, it turns into a live bird. Feathers, wings, bright eyes, intention, and flies away. People gather closer. This is a very story that Jesus did with clay birds.
When he was a little boy.
That's in the Islamic tradition. He does it again and again, and once more. The crowds are now prostrating on the ground around him in awe and astonishment. He feels oppressed by the attention. He sets out quickly in the desert. They follow. He turns on them. I have work to do alone. They keep coming. He prays, Lord, Lord, what is this gift that you've given me that envelops me with this crowd? Then an inspiration comes. Do something to offend them. So he farts. The great master breaks wind loud and low. The people look at each other, shake their heads, and leave. All but one. The master sees the radiance of this one young man's need, the splendor of his soul. Why didn't you leave with the others? The young man says, I was not blown in on the first wind of inspiration to let myself be blown out by the second. And besides, this second is better. It gives peace to your blessed essence. That's a wild story. Incredible. Yeah. We have no example of Jesus doing it.
The Gospels are obviously inaccurate because there are no good jokes in them.
Right.
And nobody would have hung out with lowlife as much as he did without being amusing, would they?
Right.
what is, just to see if people are alive.